My name is Eli, and I've always felt like a shadow in my own life. The kind of person who exists just enough to be seen but not remembered. I'm 17, a high school senior, and if I had to describe myself, I'd say I'm quiet, observant, and maybe a little too sensitive for my own good. My friends joke that I live in my head, and they're not wrong. It's safer there. I came out to a few close friends last spring. They were supportive in the way people are when they don't fully understand. My parents, though, they don't know. Or maybe they do and just pretend not to. We all have secrets. Mine are just heavier to carry some days. I spend most of my time sketching in the margins of my notebooks or writing in journals no one reads. School is a blur of bell rings and blank stares, except for one class, literature. Mr. Reyes teaches it. He's nothing like the other teachers. Early 30s, sharp-featured with quiet eyes, and the kind of voice that makes you lean in without realizing. He doesn't talk much about himself, but when he recites poetry aloud, his words hit like slow-burning fireworks, controlled, deliberate, but full of feeling. I noticed him the first week of the semester, not in the way I noticed other teachers. There was something about him I couldn't place like a painting you can stop staring at, because you resure it's saying something even if you can't hear it. One Friday afternoon, just as the final bell rang and chairs scraped against the tile floor, I stayed behind. Pretending to search for a missing pen, Mr. Reyes looked up from his desk, eyes scanning the now empty classroom, and asked, "Eli, could you stay for a minute?" My stomach nodded. I hadn't done anything wrong, had I? He gestured to the front row. "Sit." I did. He pulled out a piece of paper, my last essay on the picture of Dorian Gray. "This," he said, "isn't just an assignment. It reads like a confession." I blinked. "I didn't mean to." "You wrote about the danger of hiding parts of yourself for the sake of appearances. That's not something most students think about." I shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "I just, related to it, I guess." There was a pause long enough to be noticed, short enough to be ignored. Then he said, "I used to write like this when I was your age." It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Like he was peeling something back without fully removing it. The silence stretched between us, comfortable and charged. I fiddled with the frayed edge of my sleeve. "You've got a voice," he added. "You should keep using it." I wanted to ask him what he meant. Instead I said, "Thanks," and stood to leave. But before I reached the door, he said my name again softly, like it was a secret. "Eli, are you okay?" That question did something to me. No one ever asks and means it. Not really. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell him that I felt like I was drowning in my own skin most days, that I was tired of pretending. But instead I gave him the answer everyone gives. "I'm fine." He studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "Have a good weekend." I walked out with a head full of questions and a heart that beat louder than usual. After that day I noticed the small things. The way Mr. Reyes's eyes would linger on me during discussions. How he'd ask for my interpretations more than others. The way he sometimes smiled, not fully, just enough to show he understood something I hadn't said. I told myself I was imagining it. I had to be. But part of me deep down hoped I wasn't. Because for the first time in a long time, someone saw me, and I wasn't ready for what that meant. Not yet, but I wanted to be. Something shifted after that Friday. Mr. Reyes didn't treat me differently, not in ways anyone else would notice, but I felt it. When he passed by my desk, the air seemed denser. When he spoke my name, it carried something unspoken underneath. We never acknowledged the tension outright. We didn't need to. It lived in the pauses. Over the next few weeks, I stayed after class more often. Sometimes under the excuse of clarifying a passage, sometimes with no excuse at all. He never turned me away. One afternoon, he pulled a chair beside me rather than staying at his desk. We read a Pablo Neruda poem together. His voice was soft, reverent. "I want to do with you what spring does with the cherry trees." He looked at me after reading that line. Not in a teacherly way, something else, something that made my pulse skitter. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said. I nodded. "It feels like wanting, but quiet." He held my gaze for a beat too long. "Exactly." From that moment, everything became subtext. The next week, a storm rolled in, thunder low and persistent. Most students left early. I stayed behind to finish a project, and again Mr. Reyes didn't ask me to leave. We sat across from each other, papers between us, books open but ignored. He rubbed his eyes, weary. "My wife and I barely talk anymore," he murmured. "It's like we share a roof but not a life." It was the first time he mentioned her. I didn't know what to say. I just listened. "I used to think that distance meant space," he continued, "but now I think it just means silence." There was a vulnerability in his words that unnerved me. He wasn't just venting, he was revealing, letting me in. "I know what that's like," I said quietly, "being close to people and still feeling alone." His eyes met mine, tired and tender. "You shouldn't have to know that at your age." Silence wrapped around us, dense and electric. I wasn't sure who moved first. Maybe it was me, maybe it was him. But somehow we were closer. His hand brushed mine, not by accident. And when I didn't move away, his fingers settled there, gentle and warm. I looked up at him. "What are we doing?" He didn't answer. Instead, he touched my cheek, tentative. His thumb hovered near the edge of my jaw like he was memorizing the shape of restraint. Then, slowly, cautiously, he leaned in. Our lips met in a hush, softer than I imagined and 10 times more dangerous, not rushed. Not desperate, just ... fragile. When we pulled apart, neither of us spoke. The clock ticked louder than before. Rain tapped against the windows like an accusation. Mr. Reyes stood abruptly. "You should go." My heart thudded in my chest. "Do you regret it?" He didn't look at me. "I don't know what I feel." I walked home that night with my hands in my pockets and a war raging in my chest. Guilt, elation, confusion. It didn't feel wrong, but it didn't feel right either. The next few days he avoided me, no eye contact in class. No comments on my assignments. He became a stranger again. I hated how much that hurt. Late one night I texted him, "Did it mean nothing to you?" His reply came minutes later. "It meant too much. That's the problem." The following week, he asked me to stay after class again. This time, he locked the door. His movements were deliberate, guarded, but the moment I stood near him, the tension returned thick and irresistible. "We said we shouldn't do this," I whispered. "I know," he said. "But I keep thinking about you." His kiss came quicker this time. Less hesitant, his hands found my waist, mine, his collar. We didn't speak. There was no room for words. But as I pulled away, I noticed his wedding ring, twisted nervously around his finger like a reminder. "This is a mistake," he said. I nodded. "Then why does it feel like the only thing that's real?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The guilt didn't come all at once. It trickled in, quiet and persistent, like water beneath a locked door. At first, I told myself what we had wasn't hurting anyone. No one knew. No one would. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, especially in places like high school, where silence is always suspicious. It started with a glance. A janitor, closing up the halls, caught sight of me leaving Mr. Reyes's classroom after hours. He didn't say anything, just narrowed his eyes in a way that said everything. By Monday morning, the whispers had begun. "Did you see Eli walking out of Reyes's class? Pretty late for just extra help, huh?" They were alone again. Isn't that weird? The halls became colder, smiles disappeared. Even my friends grew distant, unsure whether to ask or assume. I tried to act unfazed, but I felt stripped bare. Every look felt like a spotlight, every silence a verdict. Mr. Reyes noticed too. During class he wouldn't call on me, wouldn't even look at me. It was like I had become radioactive, too dangerous to touch, even with words. I didn't blame him. I hated him for it. I hated myself more. The last time we spoke in person was behind a closed door again. No books, no excuses, just truth. "They're talking," I said, voice low, fists clenched at my sides. "I know," he replied. His tie was loosened, his eyes darker than I'd seen before. "We have to stop." "Then why did you start?" He looked away. "Because I was lonely, and you made me feel seen." "I wasn't a fix," I whispered. "I know." For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You need to protect yourself now. That means putting distance between us." It felt like being erased from my own story, but I nodded. And I walked away. That week, my poem, one I never meant to share, was accidentally submitted to the school's annual writing contest by a friend who thought they were helping. It was raw, emotional, bleeding with lines only one person would understand. It won. The day it was read aloud over the morning announcements, I watched Mr. Reyes pale behind his desk. He wouldn't look at me, but I could feel his panic. Later that day he pulled me aside. "You have to retract it," he said. "People will figure it out." "I'm done hiding," I said. "They'll ruin us. They already have." His voice dropped. "This could end my career." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You ended it the moment you kissed me." We didn't speak again after that. 3 days later, he was suspended pending an internal investigation. Someone had overheard our argument. The rumors solidified into reports. Teachers stared. Parents called. Students whispered louder. His wife left him. My parents found out, not from me, but from the school. I didn't cry, not when they yelled. Not when they asked if it was true. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at my hands, wondering when they'd stopped feeling like mine. Graduation came. I walked across the stage alone, no applause from the audience. Just the sound of my shoes on wood and my name echoing into a silence heavy with judgment. But I didn't flinch. Instead, I read one final poem I'd written for me, not him. I fell in love with a shadow. And I learned light by letting it go. There was no applause. Only stillness, and somehow that felt right. A year later, in a quiet corner of my college library, I saw someone who looked like him. Same posture, same dark hair. My heart caught and then released. It wasn't him. I sat down and opened a new notebook. Wrote on the first page. It wasn't love, not really, but it taught me who I was. Some stories aren't meant to be forever, but they're still worth telling.